listener production.
Hi, happy Friday and welcome to The Briefing. I'm Sasha Barbagat. During the US presidential race last year, you might have noticed a certain type of content popping off online that we haven't really seen much of before. TikTok lip readers claiming to have worked out what people like Donald Trump, Kamala Harris or Joe Biden were saying when cameras were present, but microphones weren't.
I do truly believe that if I have the right to lip read anyone, it would be a politician who is working to serve the government or the country.
We deep dive the growing trend of TikTok lip readers, their influence, and the ethics around what they do later on in this episode. But as always, let's start with the headlines. Chris Spurrier is here. It is Friday, the 21st of February.
Morning, Sash. Morning, everybody. We start with breaking news this morning. Former Spanish football boss Luis Rubiales has been found guilty of sexual assault after forcibly kissing player Jenny Hermoso after the Women's World Cup final in Sydney in 2023. It's been a while since we covered this story, so to refresh your memory, this was the incident that sparked huge backlash and overshadowed the women's game in the months after the hugely successful World Cup. Spain had just won the final 1-0 over England, and when being presented with her medal, Hermoso was grabbed and kissed on the lips by Rubiales.
He had argued during the trial that she consented. Hermoso told the court she did not, and the incident had tainted one of the happiest days of her life. This whole thing also sparked a much wider discussion, especially in Spain, around sexism in football. And so that all brings us to today. The 47-year-old former football boss has been found guilty of sexual assault. He's also been ordered to pay a $16,000 fine and stay away from the player for a year. Rubiales has signalled he'll appeal. At the time of recording, Hermoso is yet to issue a statement.
Back home now, Peter Dutton has wrongly accused Labor of fast-tracking Australian citizenships for those fleeing Gaza to win extra votes at the election.
So you do hold serious concerns that the Albanese government is fast-tracking citizenship?
Tony Burke is spending today and the rest of this week, as I understand it, conducting as many citizenship ceremonies as he can, in literally putting thousands of people through an express citizenship process so that they can vote in the election within a few weeks, which I think is quite remarkable.
He made the comments at a Sky News summit on anti-Semitism yesterday, following reports the government wanted to make 12,500 people citizens in ceremonies across the country by March 4. But no one who has fled war-torn Gaza since 2023 is actually eligible for Australian citizenship, with applicants needing to be lawful residents of Australia for 4 years before being able to apply. Essentially, the rules exclude anyone who arrived in the country later than 2020 from applying for Australian citizenship. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke has called Dutton's comments outrageous, and it is understood just one family from Gaza has been given permanent visas on humanitarian grounds, but has not been offered citizenship. The rest remain on temporary visas.
Yeah, and if you're wondering what the significance of the citizenship is, it's because you need to be a citizen in order to vote. So you can live here and be on a visa, you could be a permanent resident, but you have to be a citizen in order to vote in our elections. Meantime, also happening overnight, Hamas has handed over the bodies of the youngest hostages taken on October 7, 9-month-old infant Kafir Bibas and his 4-year-old brother Ariel. Their mother Shiri Bibas and a fourth hostage, 83-year-old Oded Lifshitz, were also among those returned to Israel in black coffins. These were hostages who were long feared dead, Hamas saying that all 4 were killed in Israeli airstrikes. So the scenes in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square were very different to the sense of joy and relief that's come to mark the return of hostages as part of the first phase of this ceasefire deal. Israel's president asking for forgiveness for not bringing the 4 hostages home safely, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the country was united in unbearable grief.
6 living hostages will be returned to Israel on Saturday in exchange for hundreds more Palestinian prisoners. This will bring an end to the first phase of this very, very fragile ceasefire deal, with negotiations to start next week to determine what phase 2 will look like. Interestingly, Sash, part of Netanyahu's commentary here is that he's vowed to eliminate Hamas yet again, and today has been seized upon by conservative politicians in Israel who are now feeling more and more empowered to destroy Hamas, and families of those who are left in Gaza are begging and pleading with the government today to not ramp up their efforts and their hostilities and aggression against Hamas because they really want nothing more than getting their families home.
Meta and Google won't be sponsoring next weekend's Mardi Gras in Sydney as both corporations ditch diversity requirements in the US. Both companies have previously been involved in the annual event, and Meta even sent a float to the parade in 2023. But they'll both be absent next Saturday night, although there is talk the cost of sponsorship was a factor for at least one of the tech giants. Organisers for the event say, though, neither Meta nor Google meet their criteria to be an official sponsor because of their dipping commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. So it's a little bit of a he said, she said, you didn't fire me, I quit sort of thing.
Yeah, well, the Mardi Gras website says, we want to partner with industry leaders in diversity, equity and inclusion who champion DEI as an integral part of their organisation and culture. Interestingly, Facebook and Instagram users can now accuse transgender and gay people of being mentally ill, and that's following a revision of Meta's hateful conduct policy, while Google has sacked queer holidays from its online and mobile calendars and scaled back its DEI initiatives.
Interestingly, though, Amazon is still involved in Mardi Gras. That's despite winding back its own DEI in the US, but it is still on their Aussie website, their commitment to diversity, equity and inclusion. We know Canva, TikTok, Amex and Coles will all be involved this year. But having corporations involved at all in Mardi Gras has long been contentious, similar to having police march, because you remember Mardi Gras, like most pride movements, started as a grassroots thing in order to protest the fact that, you know, gay and lesbian people were being trampled on in society and weren't allowed to be themselves, and they kind of were coming out and going, no, we're proud. So the fact that, yeah, there are big corporations involved at all is still very contentious.
And we're getting whiplash down here on Earth as space agencies continue to watch an asteroid that could hit us. This is asteroid 2024 YR4. We deep dived it last Friday. That ep is in the show notes, and I know it was one of Sasha Barbagat's favourite deep dives of this month. When first discovered, there was a 1.3% chance the rock would hit our planet in 2032. Then that risk was increased to 2.8%. Earlier this week, NASA upgraded the risk to 3.1%, which is an alarming trend here, Sash. But that number has just been revised again, down, this time down to 1.5%.
Yeah, so asteroid YR4 is believed to be about the size of a large office building between 130 and 300 feet wide, and it could be city-destroying if it did collide with Earth. So a number of NASA-backed agencies have swung into action. We spoke to Tim Sparr from the International Asteroid Warning Network, which is actively monitoring the rock, and if it does continue to track towards us, a rocket could be used to knock it off course.
I think probably the best way to think of it is you're playing pool or billiards, and you want to just glance the object. And it's sort of like if you had the pool ball is rolling around the table for a year and you just want to knock it just a little bit so that it doesn't go in a year where you think it's going.
And Tim admitted in our chat, we actually don't know, because this is the biggest chance we've had so far of an asteroid actually colliding with us that of this scale, of this size. Small rocks hit Earth all the time, but this is a big asteroid that could hit. So right now it is still just a watch and wait game, but we don't need to panic. Don't go start ticking things off your bucket list. It's a very, very, very small chance. But they do think at this stage that if it did hit, it could hit in one of the world's most populated cities. Among those that are in the collision course right now would be Bogota, Colombia, Lagos, Nigeria, and even Mumbai in India, with up to 110 million people potentially at risk for a strike if it hits Earth. It is a concern. That's why they're watching this, but very low chance still.
Okay. All right. I'm feeling much calmer about the situation.
Take a deep breath. Thank you, Chris. Next up, we're getting into a deep dive looking at a growing trend online, and it's lip readers who are keeping an eye on famous people and trying to tell us what they're saying. Whether you're prepared to admit it or not, There's at least a very small part of you that is intrigued by the private lives of public figures. It might be a Hollywood heavyweight, your favourite muso, or a prolific politician who you'd like to know more about, or maybe what they think of a particular person, event, or topic. For a long time, the lives of the famous have been behind a curtain, a mystery we can only guess at. Sure, sources have sold stories to the media, there have been leaks from the halls of Parliament, and the paparazzi have stalked these people. But so rarely do we get to hear the story from the horse's mouth. Enter the social media lip reader. Amassing tens of millions of views, followers, likes and comments, this new iteration of content creators are posting videos of themselves watching the interactions of famous people and claiming to know what they're saying.
Why is he doing that? Come on, one photo.
Hi, I'm doing an interview though. I'll come say hi after.
I wanted to, but literally at the last minute, I was like, I just want to come meet the president. Thank you for being here. I'm serious. I wish you the best. I got your back, so hopefully you got our backs. Yeah, well, I'll go over the plans first thing.
These accounts have become so massive, you might have even noticed celebs have been covering their mouths when speaking to each other on red carpets and at events lately. Taylor Swift, one of the most notable recently at both the Grammys and the Super Bowl. So why are we eating this content up? And should we be concerned with the ethics around what could be considered spying? Nina Dellinger, or at Nina Celeste D, is one of those creators. She has 1.5 million followers on TikTok and has shared vids reading the lips of Donald Trump, Steph Curry, Kendall Jenner, and yes, Ms. Swift herself. Nina, welcome to the briefing. Why do you think people online are so obsessed with lip-reading content right now?
Yeah, I think ultimately it does come from the idea of the celebrity and being very, for lack of a better word, curious about the life of the celebrity. And, it all ties into why we love reality TV so much. And I think that people love it because they get to imagine, oh, maybe I know what a celebrity couple was talking about together, or how these celebrities go about and discuss with each other as they go to events and stuff. I think it just gives people a bit of insight, maybe, even if maybe, of course, we're not correct. It expands the thought of, okay, maybe this is what they're speaking about, or this is how they speak.
Yeah, it's kind of that obsession with like peeking behind the curtain and feeling like you're getting like a behind the scenes glance. Yeah. Look, lip reading is a legitimate skill and it's usually learnt by people who are hard of hearing. Now, you're not hard of hearing or deaf. Did you go out of your way to learn how to do this, or did you just kind of find you were naturally gifted? And how did that then turn into creating content on TikTok?
When I was 16, I remember the moment quite specifically. I was in a high school class. I think it was math class and calculus, I think. And we were all settling down for the day. And I just remember looking at someone and thinking, oh, because they were having a conversation. I was just kind of zoning out. And I thought, oh, I can see what they're saying. And it was just such a casual thought. It meant really nothing to me at the time. And I moved on. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't talk about it. Nothing occurred there. It just was a mental note. And then, fast forward years later, I graduated high school in 2015, and then, COVID happens in 2020. And the way that it translated onto TikTok was that I was under lockdown, like all of us, and I downloaded TikTok for the first time because of that. Before, I was never really someone to download TikTok. I thought, oh, that's not for me. And anyways, I did, and I ended up posting a lip reading on TikTok, and that's how it blew up. It basically blew up, and I thought, oh, people like this, and I just continued to post from there.
What was the reaction as you kind of continued? You had this initial sort of peak of engagement from followers or from people who I have stumbled across your content before. It just pops up on my For You page. Did that interest continue? Like, did you find that people just were continuously interested in your lip reading content?
Sure, yeah. I think overall, to me, I've really seen it evolve, because when I first started doing my lip reading, when I first started posting during COVID, I was very much lip reading other users, and I was doing something that was it was strictly a duet. In the TikTok platform, there's a duet feature where you have the side-by-side video. And so that's really what struck me, is I'm able to video myself alongside someone else on TikTok, and then I can mimic, the sound of filling their their lips. And so it was interesting because I saw it evolve from, okay, I'm lip reading creators. It really began with a bunch of just regular users saying, Nina, lip read me, fairly younger users, and it was all very, fun and innocent and all that. And they all were tagging me and saying, try your best. And so I would go ahead and do some of them, and then those videos would blow up. And so I really watched it evolve from that to then them tagging me in these videos of the celebrities and, public figures saying, oh, hey, this girl's a lip reader. Can you lip read this? So I think that that's why the interest is there, because I really watched my platform evolve from just, oh, hey, I can lip read other TikTokers to, oh, I can try to lip read, public figures as well.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. You don't only lip read celebrities, you also lip read politicians, and we're going to get into what that might mean in a little bit. But I'm curious to know if anyone has ever asked you to remove your content, and by anyone I mean a celebrity or a politician or a famous person. Has anyone reached out to you and said, hey, I don't want you to have this content on your page, it's defamatory or whatever, take it down?
Yes, absolutely. That has happened. Not a lot in the grand scheme of things. I think on my TikTok playlist for my lip reading, I have I think it's 300 lip reading videos. So there's a lot of lip reading videos I have. I would say out of those, there were two instances that I could think of where I was asked to remove the videos. And, one had to do with someone not wanting a name out there. And I respected that because that was a personal situation. That's all I could really speak to it. It did involve, a public figure. So there is that, but it had to do with someone who had, some private details that needed to be protected, like having to do with their safety. And so, yes, I have done that in 2 instances only because it had to do with the safety of the subject or the poster.
Okay. I'm curious to hear what you think of this. So the reason I wanted to do this story was I was watching the Super Bowl and also the Grammys, and I noticed a few times celebrities covering their mouths as they were speaking to each other, either inside the event or in the stands. Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl. That tells me that they are aware of creators like yourself who are making this content. What do you say to that? How does that feel to know that the content that you make, which gets millions and millions of views and engagement, is influencing how celebrities are actually interacting with each other? Do you feel like you're part of this kind of new cultural front? You're like the new paparazzi almost?
I don't know. I don't know if I feel it that far, just because to me, even though I do have such an audience and I do have quite a bit of views sometimes, there is a disconnect that I am trying constantly to, account for. But yeah, I would say that this is definitely a new era. We've never had a time in, ever where we have so many cameras and so many views into the public eye that I think it's representative of where it's going to go as far as every time you step out of your home, especially as a public figure, you maybe have to think of it in a different way. I've had people comment and say, oh, you're the reason Taylor Swift, brought the fan or covered her mouth. And I don't know if I would go that far, but I think it's the culmination of how you say, the public eye it's really changing and how we're being entertained,
Yeah, that's so true. How confident are you that you get it right?
It really depends. I would say it just depends from video to video. There was one time I lip read Miles Teller and his wife commented on the video and said that I got some of it correct.
Oh, okay.
So things like that make me feel like, I am getting it somewhat correct. On average, I believe from the research that I've done, it does show that the typical professional lip reader, and I should add I'm not a professional, gets it about 20 to 40% correct, of the entire phrase or sentences. So that's what I kind of keep in mind.
Yeah. So I notice on your videos as well, you've started putting a content warning, essentially saying, I'm not saying that this is true, this is all alleged. This is what I think they've said, not I know they have said this. So it's interesting you've had to put that disclaimer on. And I do want to talk a little bit about that because you recently expressed concerns because you don't just do famous people, celebrities, sports stars. You also do politicians, and you did Gavin Newsom and Donald Trump after the LA fires, and we know there were some really contentious issues between those two. You made a video addressing that you were concerned after making this sort of content. Tell me about that.
I felt like as soon as I got back on TikTok after the whole, ban occurred, even though it didn't really ban, after we got back on the app and they had that little, welcome back sort of situation, I started to see more creators that I love and I follow, large creators, showing that they had gotten kicked out of the creator fund and showing that they were just posting their normal content and now all of a sudden they've been kicked out. And so that is what I was expressing, because I genuinely thought, well, if there's any change because of who's the president, it will probably affect me, because here I am attempting to lip read the president, right? And so my thinking was, let me kind of test the waters. Let me post this video talking about it and kind of just like see how that's received and how it gets posted. And ultimately, I decided to just go for it, because I thought, if I do get kicked out, at least I can say, I got kicked out while trying to keep my content true to what it's always been.
And I just want to explain to our listeners who may be unaware, the Creator Fund, because it doesn't actually exist in Australia, is...
That's true, yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Nina, but it's for creators who have over a certain number of followers and engagement on their page, and then when they post videos that go for longer than a minute, they get paid for them, essentially. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yes, as long as it meets those criteria. And then it's also like original content. So, you have to make the video a specific way. You cannot do duets or stitches. And that's kind of how my content changed, because I did change my content format in order to monetize once I started getting a larger platform. And so then you have to keep it original content. You can't be using a stitch or a duet.
Who are your favorite types of people to lip read and why?
Politicians, because this is just my opinion, I do truly believe that if I have the right to lip read anyone, it would be a politician who is working to serve the government or the country. Yes, it's true, I don't live in the United States anymore, but I still pay U.S. taxes and I have lots of loved ones who live there. And I do believe that there is a need for transparency. And so not only do I find that it's worth a shot, but I think I can say that it's fun, because I'm trying to do something that involves transparency. I would never, that being said, I would never lip read a politician in his home, or outside of his home, doing personal things. But, like when they're on the, the Congress floor, or the, the House floor or whatever, and those videos get posted, I don't mind, attempting.
And it's funny you just made a distinction there in terms of where you would read the lips of one of, your subjects, whether it be a politician or a celebrity. Do you think there are privacy concerns or ethical questions around the content that you create? And do you have rules like the one you just described? Do you have more rules that you follow so that, you're sticking true to your own ethics and morals?
I do think there is a line, and I do think it does need to be drawn. It's a case-by-case situation, but I do think that there are things that I would never do. For example, if a celebrity was paparazzi'd or someone of the public I was paparazzi'd in their home, like I stated, I would never do that video. I do believe that if you are a celebrity and you are out in public, I do believe that you have to expect the paparazzi. So I don't think that what I am doing is in my opinion, is not as different as a paparazzi videoing them or taking pictures of them. In this case, I make it very clear that I'm not trying to say I know absolutely that what they're saying is what I'm saying. But yeah, there are definitely some lines for me. If I did read something extremely sensitive, I wouldn't post it. That's very important for me, is that if, and I believe I have read some things, especially from like younger users who are, using the platform, and they're young. They don't quite, they're expressing themselves. Perhaps they're saying some things that, the older version wouldn't have said. Yeah, there's times when I've chosen, I'm not going to lip read this video because there's no benefit for even entertainment purposes.
I'm also curious, have you ever noticed your lip readings of politicians informing journalists and influencing news stories in any way? Like, have you picked up on people who are in the media maybe seeing your content and going, oh, well, we can theorize off this, we can build a story off this?
I think so, a little bit. I would say, there was a time before when I lip read Obama speaking to Biden at Carter's funeral. Before I noticed, it got reposted on X, and I don't have X, right? It got reposted on X, and every comment, regardless of what you are, left or right, every comment was a conservative, right kind of comment of like, oh, that he's talking about the presidential race. And so I definitely feel like in that sense, that video was definitely used for a bit. I mean, it had millions of views on X, and it seemed to only be kind of going down that path. I've also been, I've been requested by newspapers, news outlets to read for them. Like the Daily Mail has reached out to me before. Page 6 has reached out to me before. So yeah, I think that there's some influence there. I think that people see that and they think, this is another way to get people's eyes,
Oh, well, it's been a fascinating chat. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And I will continue watching. I love your content. I think it's great.
Well, thank you. That makes me feel very, very happy. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
That was TikTok lip reader Nina Dellinger speaking with me there. And that is all for this episode of The Briefing. We appreciate you having a listen. We'd love it if you could share this app with a fellow famous person watcher. Maybe they're engaging with this content on social media as well. I know I am. It's kind of addictive. And even though you don't know for sure what they're saying, you do feel like you're getting that little peek behind the curtain. And of course, don't forget to check us out on socials. We'll be putting up a video with Nina shortly. We are on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. We're also on TikTok and YouTube. Search Listener Newsroom. A big thanks as well to the briefing team for their hard work this week. Chris Spiru, Bension Siebert, Jessica Wukyanov, Helen Smith, Matt Curry and Chris Marsh. You guys are legends. I'm Sasha Barbagat. See you next time.
Listener.